Hello Leo, and welcome back to Eternal Mindfulness. Tomorrow, an inevitable farewell is coming, and if you're not ready, it could break your heart. But if you are ready, it might just set your soul free. Let me ask you something. Have you been feeling like something's slipping away quietly from your life? A relationship, a dream, a version of yourself? You can't quite name it, but deep down, you know it's time to let go. Not because you want to, but because the universe is gently, or maybe not so gently, pushing you towards something greater. That's exactly why you found this video. It's not an accident. It's alignment. Tomorrow, Leo, a rare astrological alignment between the Sun, your ruling planet, and Pluto, the planet of rebirth, will activate what ancient mystics once called the Phoenix Portal. A once-in-15-year cosmic gateway that burns away everything that no longer serves your soul, and leaves only your essence, your truth, your light. You're not losing something. You're being released. This isn't a time to resist. It's a time to rise. But first, you have to say goodbye. And that's why this video exists. It's more than a horoscope, it's a spiritual transmission. A mirror. A moment. An invitation to step out of fear and into the fire of transformation. Let me be clear. Tomorrow will not be business as usual for Leo. This shift will unfold in subtle signs, not dramatic events, but your soul will feel it. You'll notice changes in how others treat you. What once energized you may suddenly feel empty. And things that used to make sense may no longer resonate. That's not chaos, it's clarity. That's not failure, it's freedom arriving in disguise. You're being called to release the version of yourself you outgrew, the one who stayed small to keep others comfortable. The one who traded authenticity for approval. That version served its purpose, but it can't go with you where you're headed. And listen, if your heart is racing right now, that's not fear. That's recognition. You already know this message is for you. So before we dive deeper into what this shift means for your career, relationships, health, and your soul's next chapter, allow me a moment to say something important. Thank you. Thank you for being here. For showing up. For tuning into Eternal Mindfulness, where every like, comment, and subscription is more than just support, it's sacred. You're not just helping this channel grow. You're helping a community of awakened souls rise together. And trust me, beloved Leo, you're going to want to stay until the very end of this video. Because what the universe is about to reveal could change everything. Now take a deep breath. Speech balloon, drop an angel number in the comments, the very first one that enters your mind. It might just be your personal code from the universe. Let's begin. There is a moment in life, quiet, almost imperceptible, when something within us knows before we admit it, a chapter is ending. And for you, Leo, that moment is approaching, not with thunder, but like a breeze that begins to shift direction. The Phoenix Portal, as ancient astrologers once understood it, is not a gate you step through, it is a sacred transition that moves through you. When the Sun, your ruling planet, meets Pluto, the symbol of total transformation, you are not asked to destroy who you are. You are asked to shed what you no longer need. And the shedding, though natural, can feel like loss. The Sun represents the self, the will to shine, the essence of identity. Pluto, in contrast, digs beneath what is visible. It rules the unseen structures that quietly govern our lives, our attachments, our fears, the egoic stories we've mistaken for truth. When these two celestial bodies align, they don't create destruction for its own sake. They create a heat so profound, it burns away false layers. What remains is pure, unshakable, and true. This is not the type of change that shouts. It doesn't come like a thunderclap. It comes like a whisper you've heard 100 times but are only now ready to understand. The job that once lit you up now feels heavy. The relationship that once made you feel safe now feels like a cage. The version of yourself that was praised, that once served you, no longer fits. And though nothing seems urgent on the surface, deep within, the ground is shifting. You can feel it. And you're being asked not to run, not to resist, but to witness, and to release. Letting go doesn't mean giving up. It means trusting that something greater is already forming. Like the way the soil must release the last remnants of winter to make room for spring. You do not force a flower to bloom, you remove what blocks the light. And in this way, the universe, or rather, life's own rhythm, is removing what keeps your light from expanding. There is a saying, when the heart lets go, the hands no longer cling. You're not being punished. You're being aligned. And alignment is rarely comfortable, because it often means confronting the parts of ourselves that have been held together by habit rather than truth. What feels like loss now will one day feel like clarity. You may notice this unfolding not as one grand event, but through a series of nudges, a conversation that unsettles you, a missed opportunity that reveals its true nature, or a sudden silence where there used to be noise. These are not random. They are signposts. Each moment, each pause, is asking, are you ready to let go of who you've been, so you can become who you truly are? This phase asks nothing more than your attention, and your honesty. What feels heavy in your life right now? What are you holding on to, not because it brings you peace, but because it's familiar? These are the gentle threads Pluto begins to unravel when it joins with the sun. Not to undo you, but to unmake the parts of you that no longer sing with joy. Change, at its deepest, is not about chasing something new. It's about creating the inner space for what is already waiting to emerge. And emergence, as we know, begins with release. You are not losing your way, you are walking toward yourself. Just as the phoenix doesn't fear the fire, it trusts it. So take a breath. Take your time. And if something within you is stirring, if there is a truth you've been afraid to say out loud, now is the time to listen. Not to the noise outside you, but to the knowing that has always been there. The one that says, it's okay. You don't have to carry this anymore. After the inner stirring of the Phoenix portal begins to awaken something deep within, the next layer of awareness calls for even more presence. The tarot, as a symbolic language of the psyche, reflects what the soul already knows but the mind hasn't yet named. And when we turn to it with sincerity, it doesn't predict, it reveals. That's why the cards drawn for tomorrow are not random. They are an echo of the shift already moving through your energy field. The first card, the Death, often brings a chill at first glance. But its message is not about physical endings, it speaks of symbolic release. It is the falling away of what has expired, the gentle unraveling of old roles, beliefs, or identities that no longer reflect who you are becoming. Think of it not as an ending, but as a sacred turning point. Just as a tree must shed its leaves to survive the winter, you, too, must let go of what no longer brings life. Holding on is a form of silent suffering. Letting go, even with trembling hands, is the beginning of freedom. Following this, the star emerges, a soft, luminous energy that reassures you that healing is not just possible, it is already underway. This card brings the quiet promise that even after loss, there is peace. The waters are clearing. The confusion is settling. You are being held by something far greater than your fear. The star invites you to trust in the slow but steady return of hope, even if you don't yet know what that looks like. It teaches that healing is not a rush to escape discomfort, but a deep, patient unfolding. Just like the sky doesn't rush the sunrise, your process doesn't need to be forced, only honored. And then comes the Fool, the spirit of beginnings. But not just any beginning, the kind that comes only when the past has been properly acknowledged. The Fool is the part of you that remembers what it feels like to trust life again, even after being hurt. It carries no baggage. It doesn't need every step planned. It simply responds to the invitation of the moment, stepping forward into the unknown with open hands and an open heart. This is not naivety, it is the highest form of courage. To begin again, knowing all that you've experienced, and still choosing to believe in joy. If you've been seeing butterflies, phoenixes, sunsets followed by early dawn light, these are not coincidences. These are the subconscious mind's way of communicating, through archetypal language, that you are in a cycle of transformation. What your waking mind cannot yet accept, your intuitive self has already begun to process. These symbols are not signs to decode, but invitations to awaken. This is why now is the time to pause. Not because everything is falling apart, but because you are being offered a rare space to realign. In stillness, we begin to remember. A simple practice like writing a farewell letter to your old self, or walking slowly beneath trees while silently repeating words of release, can create more healing than hours of mental analysis. The earth does not ask you to explain your pain, it simply receives it. In the same way, your willingness to stop chasing, fixing, or controlling opens the door to natural integration. The ancient wisdom teachings remind us that the present moment is the only place transformation can take root. That's why I encourage you to sit each morning with the rising sun, feel its warmth on your skin, and whisper, "I am ready to release what is done. I trust the path ahead." Not because you know where it leads, but because you are no longer willing to carry what weighs you down. And from that space of surrender, something remarkable can begin. When transformation begins on the inside, the body often speaks first. You may have noticed a strange fatigue lately, not the kind that a nap can fix, but a deeper kind of weariness that seems to have no obvious cause. Perhaps your sleep feels lighter, or your mind wakes you in the middle of the night with thoughts that won't settle. This isn't a flaw in your system, it's the body responding to an energetic rebalancing. When something internal is ready to shift, the nervous system becomes more alert, like the soft ringing of a bell that says, "Pay attention." These physical signals are not symptoms to fear, but invitations to slow down and care more deeply for yourself. Your body, like the rest of you, is being asked to release what no longer serves. One simple but powerful way to support this shift is to begin each day with warm lemon water, not just for your digestion, but as a gentle signal to your body that you are cleansing, preparing, and listening. Supplementing with magnesium and vitamin B6 can help calm the overstimulated nerves, creating space for clarity and emotional ease. But more than anything, what your body needs right now is kindness, not just the absence of pressure, but the presence of compassion. To sit, breathe, and remind yourself, even this exhaustion is part of the process. The same principle applies to your career. If you felt a sense of heaviness or suffocation in your work lately, it might not be about the tasks or the people, but about your soul's quiet realization that something no longer aligns. Many people try to push through these feelings, but energy never lies. If the spark is gone, it won't return through discipline alone. You must ask yourself honestly, does my work still light me up, or am I simply performing what used to matter? Sometimes the most courageous thing you can do is to end a routine, a goal, or even a position that once made sense, but now feels like a closed door you keep knocking on. This doesn't always mean quitting your job or making drastic changes. Sometimes it means changing your posture toward it. Detaching your worth from outcomes. Releasing the need to prove. Recognizing when you've outgrown an identity. And from that space of honesty, new options, ones that were previously invisible, begin to appear. As one ancient teaching suggests, when the hand is no longer clenched, it can finally receive. Financially, you're being nudged to reevaluate not just how much you have, but how consciously you're using it. Emotional spending, those small indulgences that momentarily soothe but eventually clutter, may be asking to be seen with gentler awareness. The universe isn't taking anything from you. It's simply preparing you for a more refined flow, one that supports the next version of your life. But for that flow to arrive, there must be room. What are 3 things you can release now? Purchases, habits, obligations, that don't truly nourish your well-being. Write them down. Clarity begins with observation. In these moments, fear of loss can easily arise. But instead of bracing against it, try welcoming the discomfort as a necessary pause. Growth is rarely clean or comfortable. It asks us to trust the unseen, to let the old fall away before the new becomes visible. And while endings are rarely easy, they are often the most honest moments we ever live through. Gratitude is the bridge between what is leaving and what is coming next. It softens the edges of release and keeps your heart open, not to what was, but to what could be. Sometimes, the deepest transformations come not from things we gain, but from what we release, or, more precisely, from who we release. In this phase of your evolution, Leo, as your energy is recalibrating on every level, your relationships will begin to mirror that internal shift. There's a quiet wisdom unfolding, one that asks you to look gently but honestly at the connections you hold most closely. When your soul is expanding, not every bond can stretch with it, and that's not failure. That's growth. You may notice a growing distance between you and someone once central to your life. This shift might be sudden, like a door closing without warning, or it might unfold slowly, like a conversation that never quite reaches the same depth. Either way, what you're feeling is valid. There's a reason the heart resists letting go. It recognizes the gravity of true connection. But sometimes, releasing someone doesn't mean you're abandoning love. It means you're finally choosing to love without conditions, including the condition of staying. This moment is asking you to check in with your emotional truth. If you're in a romantic relationship, the question isn't just whether you love them, it's whether you feel free to be fully yourself while loving them. Has your voice grown quieter in the name of keeping peace? Have your dreams become smaller to fit inside someone else's comfort zone? Love, at its purest, does not require sacrifice of self, it invites expression of self. And when that expression feels dimmed, it's time to ask whether the light you're preserving is your own. For those who are healing from heartbreak or navigating the grief of emotional loss, this is a space where compassion must rise. Not pity. Not indulgence. True compassion, the kind that recognizes how hard it is to let go of someone who once felt like home. But even the most beautiful homes can become too small for who we're becoming. This is the time to practice the art of release, not as an act of forgetting, but as a conscious act of honoring. One deeply reflective practice is to write a letter of forgiveness, not to be sent, but to be written from the deepest honesty of your heart. Then, burn it in silence. Not because it erases the pain, but because it transforms it. You're not forgiving for their peace. You're forgiving so your hands can finally unclench. So your breath can finally deepen. So you can come back home to yourself. You might feel like you're losing a part of who you were with that person. And in many ways, that's true. But the part of you that's fading is not your essence. It's the role you played to belong, to be chosen, to feel worthy. And now, you're being called to step into worthiness that requires no audience, no approval, no other half. What's leaving your life is making space for what reflects your truth more fully. It doesn't mean love is ending. It means love is being refined. In many ancient teachings, there is the reminder that clinging creates suffering. But to hold something lightly, even love, is to allow it to breathe, to evolve, and to reveal its true form. What stays will root itself more deeply. What leaves will return to the earth with quiet grace. And in both cases, you are not broken, you are becoming whole. Letting go of someone does not mean you lose love. It means you begin to understand that real love, especially the love you give yourself, doesn't require permission. It simply needs space. By now, you've begun to sense it. The shift isn't just emotional or situational. It's vibrational. And in times like these, when every part of your being is recalibrating, even the colors you wear, the numbers you notice, and the smallest rituals you practice can become powerful allies. They aren't random. They are mirrors of where your energy is heading, and invitations to move with intention rather than resistance. The color burnt orange holds a bold frequency that aligns with transformation. It's not the flame of destruction, but the warmth of evolution, the kind of change that glows from within when you've finally decided not to hold back any longer. It supports action rooted in clarity. Just wrapping yourself in this color, or surrounding your space with it, can serve as a subtle declaration: I am ready to change, and I trust myself through it. It's the color of shedding fear. Lavender, on the other hand, soothes what burnt orange stirs up. Where one energizes, the other softens. Lavender holds space for your emotional healing, especially the parts of you that are grieving something you can't yet explain. Sometimes we don't even realize we're mourning an old version of ourselves, a relationship dynamic that once felt safe, or the dream we quietly outgrew. Lavender says, it's okay. You're allowed to feel tender while transforming. Healing doesn't require urgency, only honesty. And then there are the numbers. Angel numbers, repeating sequences, or simply patterns that keep finding their way to your attention. These aren't about superstition. They are energetic timestamps. 555 is the clearest one. Change is not only coming, it's happening now. This number doesn't warn, it affirms. 144 brings a steadier tone, reminding you that you're not doing this alone. While you may feel the weight of solitude, there is support available, often in the form of unexpected guidance or inner knowing that shows up when you quiet the noise. 911, while urgent in tone, is actually a blessing in disguise. It asks you to pay attention. There may be a situation, habit, or connection that needs to be released now, not for punishment, but for your own liberation. In moments like this, energy rituals can serve as grounding points, anchors in the unknown. Simple, symbolic acts can communicate powerfully with your subconscious. Writing down what you're ready to release, then burning it in a safe space, like a ceramic bowl, is less about fire and more about finality. Watching the words disappear into smoke reminds your mind that you are choosing to let go. That the story no longer controls you. Even a quiet walk alone, where your only companion is your breath and a whispered affirmation, "I'm not afraid of change. I choose to move forward," becomes a form of alignment. There is something sacred about returning to your body and allowing movement to mirror momentum. The rhythm of your steps becomes a message to your nervous system. We're not stuck, we're stepping into something new. Change asks for courage. But not the loud, dramatic kind. What's required now is the quieter bravery of showing up, again and again, even when the path isn't fully visible. This is the courage to listen, to trust, to act on what your inner compass already knows. And as you close this chapter and step into what's next, remember, you were never meant to shrink into spaces that no longer fit. You weren't born just to adapt or survive. You were born to expand, to radiate, to embody the truth that your life is not a cage to manage, but a flame to tend. Let that flame rise. Let it light the way forward. Leo, if you've made it to this moment, take a deep breath, because this is not the end of the story. It's the quiet before a new sunrise. You are not being broken. You are being rebuilt, brighter, bolder, and more aligned than you've ever been. What feels like loss today may one day be the very moment you look back on and say, "That was the beginning of my return." You don't need to shout to be seen. You don't need to exhaust yourself proving your worth. Your light, the real light, doesn't demand approval. It only asks to be lived in truth. So if something or someone is gently stepping away from your path right now, let them go with a soft heart. Not because it didn't matter, but because it already served its purpose. This chapter is closing, and not by accident. It's making space for a version of you who no longer needs to shrink, silence, or settle. And yes, there may be a silence after the goodbye, that empty space where the noise used to be. But that silence is sacred. That's where you meet yourself again. That's where you remember your own voice. The emptiness is not a void. It's a womb. A beginning disguised as stillness. So I invite you, right now, to close your eyes. Place your hand over your heart. And ask, Am I living in alignment with who I truly am? If the answer is anything less than a full-bodied yes, then that's your invitation. Not to panic. Not to rush. But to begin, gently, bravely, intentionally. Because change doesn't happen when we're ready. It happens when we're honest. Thank you for being here, not just in this video, but truly here, with yourself, with your process. You didn't stumble onto this message by chance. There are no coincidences at this depth. You arrived right on time. If something in this message lit a fire within you, I'd love to hear from you. Drop an angel number in the comments, or share how this message resonated with where you are right now. What part of yourself are you ready to return to? What truth are you finally ready to live? And if you know a Leo who's standing at the edge of their own transition, share this with them. Help them feel seen. Because you never know when your light is the exact torch someone else needed. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and turn on notifications so you never miss these soul-aligned updates from the Eternal Mindfulness community. Your presence here doesn't just support the channel, it helps the light move further. And trust me, Leo, the world needs more of your light. You're not being left behind. You're being called forward. Not to become smaller, but to shine more wildly, more truthfully, more fearlessly than ever before. And that, beloved Leo, is your birthright.